So the boost system, I mean, it certainly exists. With all the awesome mechanics and dynamics that Titanfall 2 has to bring, boosts are one such mechanic that kinda just falls flat. You see, boosts in this game function pretty similarly to score streaks from Call of Duty, which makes sense given their development roots. However, Titanfall 2 managed to make that system, well, kinda suck. To start off, you can only choose one boost for the entire game, meaning if you chose something you didn't want, then tough luck buddy, gotta wait until the match is over. Secondly, the way you earn these things is flat out slow. While your score doesn't reset upon death, it can be a slog if you don't consistently earn overdrive, which if you don't know what that is, it basically grants you extra score the more you do without dying. This is made even worse in modes with Titans in them because, as it turns out, Titans are also technically a score streak. But wait, what's the big deal? Isn't that good? Well, it's not good if you're trying to earn boosts in particular, because you can't earn another one of those until your Titan dies and resets your meter. With certain boosts, getting them only once your Titan goes down every once in a while can feel like you don't even have a boost equipped in the first place. And the final reason why the boost system sucks?
Take that! 99% of them are boring and unrewarding as fuck.
So join me as I discuss each boost in detail and how you can make the most out of them, which, trust me, you probably won't either way because they really do just kinda suck that much. Starting off with a long list of misery, we're here at the bottom of the barrel. Phase Rewind is the second cheapest boost at a 24% meter requirement, and what it does is upon activation, you'll enter the phase dimension and rewind to where you were a couple of seconds ago. The concept for this is pretty cool, I will admit, but the execution is just so
goddamn bad.
To start, it's a watered down version of an already existing tactical, and spoiler warning, this applies to the next two boosts right after as well. If you're running Phase Shift, there is literally no reason to be running this boost at all. The Phase Rewind activation is slower, Phase Shift is available more often, you can't really control where you're going with the rewind, so you sometimes just get put in an even worse situation than before. You lose all your momentum, so it doesn't matter how fast you're going, and finally, the Rewind activation leaves behind a trail of phase particles, so if you pop this in front of somebody who actually has a functioning brain and eyes, they'll just anticipate where you're going and shoot you down immediately. And you can't even prepare for that because you can't move your camera while you're reversing it, so you're basically just stuck hoping you're facing a good direction. But for those who are utterly deranged, how do we best utilize this boost? Well, you really can't. It's actually so comically hilarious how bad this boost is. But there is one legitimate use for it. You can use this boost right after your Titan eject to hopefully save yourself from an untimely death in the air. Hip hip hooray! This is great if you ignore the other, 10 ways to save yourself from a goose. Let it be known that this will be the only boost I'm putting in the garbage poo-poo tier. Okay, now admittedly, this is a boost I really can't bring myself to hate because, I mean, just look at my profile picture. However, no amount of glazing can obscure the truth that Holo Pilot Nova is just bad. Like, with Phase Rewind, this is basically just a watered down version of a tactical that you have less control of. Unlike the Phase Rewind though, you aren't punished for actually using the decoys. But that begs the question, if you can fool somebody with one clone, then why would you need 3? To answer this question, I guess to cover more ground? But you can't really capitalize on all 3 of the clones anyways, so what's even the point? Clones get shot down in 2 to 3 shots anyways, so by the time you kill one person who got fooled by the Holo, the other guy is probably already looking at you. And that's if we're being on the positive side of a person actually getting tricked by the Holo. So what can Holo Pilot Nova actually bring? Well, earlier I said covering more ground with your Holos is a positive. Holos always trigger the minimap, and if somebody shoots it, well, you get the minimap ping and an audio cue. You can also use this in a pinch if you're somehow losing against some grunts as a non-Holo pilot, since, well, actually you can use this against all AI since they often prioritize the clones instead of you. At least if you're not directly in their face. The best way to use it for sure though is to stack a bunch of them and to throw them down all at once. While one clone may be easy to single out, no matter how experienced you are, 9 clones can definitely make you stop in your tracks. This is admittedly more of a meme strat though, because that requires to actually earn enough meter for those clones, but hey, I mean, it's something, right? So while it may be D tier, it's secretly an S tier in my heart. Moving on to C tier, have you ever wanted an AWOL with the same placement jank, no amped bullets, and with less health? have some fear, the hardcover is here. Yet again, another boost that's just a watered down version of its tactical counterpart. What the fuck, Respawn? You're 3 for 3 on this, man. In terms of positives though, hardcover has a couple of them. To start, this is the cheapest boost in the game at 20%, meaning that you can get free near instant deployable cover pretty early in a game. But the only place I can really see this attribute being useful in is in live fire. If you put this in a good enough spot, you can have a free lookout in major areas, but the inherent problem with any type of deployable cover in any sort of game is the tunnel vision that comes with the desire to make the most out of it. And with the movement system, it can be pretty easy to get flanked if you don't know what you're doing, or if somebody flies at you at Mach speed and you can't shoot them anyways before they implant their foot in your face. If you want to make the most out of this boost, just treat it as a second AWOL with none of the qualities that make it worth using. Alright, so what if we took an anti-Titan weapon, made it inaccurate, stationary, and also made it do sort of okay damage? Well, the Titan Sentry is here for you, I guess. Simply put, it's not really good at its job, and because of how easy it is to take down, a lot of the time it's only really useful when the Titan you're trying to target is focused on something else. And remember, this is an anti-Titan Sentry. It's already pretty mid at destroying its intended targets, so if it tries to kill anything else, well, good luck. Plus, eagle-eyed pilots will have no trouble rushing the damn thing and can take out the Sentry with one punch anyways. I'll be honest, the only mode where I can find this thing being useful at all is in Bounty Hunt, because at least there you can get some passive kills. Against players, the anti-Titan Sentry only serves as a minor inconvenience, so if you want to get the most out of it, you're definitely going to want to stack multiple, or you'll have to get behind your target. Like with a lot of other things in this list, ticks are a cool concept but are just horribly executed. And that mainly has to do with the way they actually function. The AI for ticks, well, let's just say that they aren't the most refined in the world. Between the awkward pathfinding, surprisingly short detection range, and the high meter cost at 65%, this extra ordnance isn't that good. Plus, it doesn't really work well in modes with minions since they'll often go after those guys instead of pilots. However, ticks can shine really well in live fire maps due to the smaller size, and stacking a bunch of them in PvP can be a surefire way to get maybe at least like one kill. But yeah, the problem is the consistency, so that's why they're in C tier. Moving on to our first B tier, we have Dice Roll. I had a hard time deciding between B and C for this one because, I mean, it's a dice roll. RNG in a PvP aspect will always be a bit iffy, and the choices with what you can roll definitely diminish the value you can get overall. But the main advantage of this thing is being able to quote-unquote technically bring multiple different boosts into a game, even if you can't really choose what you get. There isn't really any nuance or awesome tech to talk about here, so we're just gonna move on. Up next is Radar Jammer, and depending on who you ask, this is either the most annoying boost in the game, or it feels like it does literally nothing. On activation, you obscure the enemy's minimap for 20 seconds. That's a solid amount of time, but it doesn't completely obscure the map for 20 seconds because every 7 seconds, the map flickers for a brief second. Now by itself, I agree, Radar Jammer is at most a mild inconvenience. It gets super annoying though if you can manage to coordinate and stack a bunch of these together. Now you probably won't notice the effect that this has that often because this is just one of those abilities that can be hard to gauge the overall effectiveness of in the first place. But speaking from personal experience, as one of the few people in the game to even recognize there's a minimap, whenever this does get deployed, just know that I
Insert any quote here.
Like the Titan Sentry, this thing would be so much better if it could do its job more consistently. However, unlike the Titan Sentry, this thing can actually be a lot more useful in more scenarios. Since this thing is meant to target pilots and it doesn't fire projectiles, it can actually serve as a good covering fire and suppression tool. The trick behind this though is where you actually place it, because unfortunately, this thing starts off inaccurate before it starts to really lock in on your enemy, and it only lasts for like 1 minute. So ideally, you want to place it in a high traffic area, but you gotta make sure you don't place it too close or too far away. Once you get those positions down though, it can be pretty solid in objective-based game modes like Hardpoint or CTF, and even if you don't get any kills with it, you can force people to take care of it first in a fight, or it can serve as a neat little laser pointer for those who approach. Oh, and of course, stacking multiple of these will always be good. Probably the most overrated boost on here, the Smart Pistol. Now, I've already made a video about the Smart Pistol, so if you want to watch that, you can check out the top right of the screen. But basically, it's a weapon that you can get that can lock onto enemies. Even though it does have limited ammo, I can see why a lot of people don't like it. But in reality, a lot of the situations the Smart Pistol is good in can be overcome with enough skill and a fast enough reaction time. Think of it as a quick time event. If you miss the button prompt, boom, you're dead. But if you're diligent enough, the Smart Pistol just becomes a warning for,
Hey, I see you!
To make it even simpler, the worse your opponents are, the better the Smart Pistol will be. There are nuances to using this though, so let's talk about how to best utilize this boost. For starters, you should only really be killing pilots with this gun. While you can swiftly dispatch of minions with this, you have limited ammo and those guys can probably be taken out with a grenade instead. Second of all, you should always try to have high ground with this weapon. The biggest weakness of the Smart Pistol is the time it takes to lock on. It's harder to aim straight up, and most people don't look up anyways, so being straight above somebody can be a surefire way to maximize your killing potential. And speaking of the lock-on mechanic, you don't actually have to use it. In a pinch, you can just treat your Smart Pistol as a P20, and you can mag dump with it. Granted, the visual recoil definitely sucks, but in close quarters combat, that won't matter anyways. And finally, this tip is a little niche, but you can actually lock onto ordnance with this thing. Most notably, the frag grenade. This can be great to detonate throw nades almost instantly to kill somebody, or to remove the threat of one exploding by you from far away. And now we're at our one and only A tier, Map Pack. Pretty obvious from the name itself, but once you activate it, you get UAV wall hacks. Now, unlike the other couple of boosts that are mid compared to their tactical counterpart, I can confidently say that Map Hack is better than Pulse Blade, at least in terms of doing its job. In fact, it's so decent that I was really debating about whether I was going to put it at the top of B tier or to move it to A instead. While Map Hack may be slower to earn at a whopping 70% meter, the range of the Map Hack is far greater than Pulse Blade. It also lasts slightly longer too, and the greatest upside to this boost is the fact that this actually affects your whole team. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that this is pretty good. If timed right, your team can rip through objective zones, and even if you're the only one who got use out of it, who can say no to free wall hacks? And now we're on to the best boost in the game by far. While you may not be able to use it in PvP modes, this boost is essential if you truly want to squeeze everything out of your Titan. Now ordinarily, batteries can only be attained once you rodeo an enemy Titan. This is a pretty risky move because, well, you can get killed. And even if you manage to get the battery, they can turn around and still kill you. But battery boost just straight up gives you a battery. No tricks, no gimmicks, and most importantly, no risks. But why is getting a battery even worth doing so in the first place? Well, to start, this is the only way to restore health to your Titan. Not only that, but it also gives your Titan overshield, so again, even more HP. But the cherry on top is that a battery gives you 20% of your Titan's core. This is huge. If you equip Overcore as your Titan kit, that means off the drop, you'll have 40% of your core already achieved, plus you've got the little extra HP for the shields. This can be an absolute game changer for certain Titans like Ronins, who can really take the overshield the extra mile, or Tones with Overcore, who can get their salvo core super early in just 3 missile barrages. However, there can be a difference when it comes to when you use this free battery. Now, while your Titan off the drop can get the extra overshield if you immediately use the battery, do note that you won't get any of the actual healing of your bar, because, you know, there's nothing to heal. So depending on how the match goes and where you can safely disembark, it can often be worth it to save that heal until your Titan actually takes some damage. You can also not be selfish and grant that battery to a teammate. I mean, if you really trust them, I guess. Besides the benefit of healing your teammates, this will actually grant you 35% of your Titan meter, meaning that once you use that battery on a friend, you can immediately back them up with a Titan of your own. And yeah, that would be the end of the video, except we've got one more boost to talk about, and that's amped weapons. Now, unlike all the other boosts in this game, the performance of amped weapons is entirely dependent on your loadout and your skill level. The premise of this boost is simple. Activate it and you get a 50% damage boost for your weapons, plus they'll all be automatically reloaded. For weapons with a particularly long reload like the L-Star, when it gets overheated, it can be quite clutch when you can suddenly regain all your ammo on command. To do good with this boost, all you have to do is kill. That's about it. But the reason why I didn't mention this boost until now is because not all weapons are created equal. I think you know what that means. Boom! Another tier list. Cry about it. Useless tier. I think this tier can explain itself. For these weapons, activating the amp changes virtually nothing. Their killing potential is basically the same. There's no interesting breakpoints to be broken, and the best thing you can do here is treat the amp as a free reload. The niche tier. The niche tier is reserved for the sidearms and 2 of the grenadier weapons. For the EPG and softball, the main advantage you're going to be grabbing here is for the increased damage on Titans and increased splash damage. A lot of the time though, neither of those advantages really work out, but when they do, I mean, it still doesn't really seem that impactful. Of course, there are also the sidearms. I put them here because are you really going to be using sidearms instead of your primary? Don't answer that. The one noticeable change here though will be the B3 Wingman, which goes from a 3-shot body, 2-shot headshot to a 2-shot body and 1-shot head. So basically you now have a hit scan Wingman Elite. The barely noticeable. This tier is mostly comprised of the automatic weapons. I don't think there's really much to explain here. Through testing, the general feel of these weapons stay the same, and I didn't really have any moments where I was like, wow, I'm so glad I had amped weapons on this. The noticeable. Now this is where it starts getting good. The extra damage means that the Volt now finally feels like it falls in line with the other SMGs when it comes to killing power. Now admittedly, the L-Star could have probably also gone into the barely noticeable tier, but fuck you, this is my baby, and good lord, it melts through people. And finally, we have the Mastiff and EVA 8. The big problem with shotguns is the range, right? So slap on that extra damage, and all of a sudden, they both feel a lot more consistent. The game changers. These weapons are where the amp boost truly shines. It all has to do with damage breakpoints and how amped weapons changes them. To start off, we have the SMR and all the anti-Titan weapons. With the damage boost, the SMR is able to one-shot pilots in the head and doubles as a decently effective anti-Titan weapon. For the actual anti-Titan weapons, the Archer is able to one-shot Doom Titans, a charge rifle with a hack attachment makes it basically the regular charge rifle but you can fire faster, and both the Thunderbolt/MGL simply just become a lot more threatening with just a few shots. Moving on to the pilot weapons, the G2 becomes a 2-shot to the body, making those cross maps super deadly, the double take instantly becomes a 1-shot if you score a full hit, the Hemlock becomes a 1 burst if all shots hit, and finally, the Mozambique also becomes a 1-shot if all 3 pellets hit. To reiterate, these all hit those vital breakpoints, and it's crazy to think that a simple damage boost is able to propel these guys all the way up the weapons pyramid. And yeah, those are all the boosts. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe, yada yada, but more importantly, join the Discord. There you can meet other people who want to play Titanfall 2, and it gives me the chance to interact with you guys. There are also YouTube memberships if you want to support me even further. But yeah, anyways, that's gonna be all from me, so I'll see ya in the next one. Peace.